Get started. I appreciate all of you who are here and to see your faces and your names. That's wonderful. So let's see. Today we're going to do introductions and a check-in. And just to give you a quick warning, I'm going to ask you to just say your name, where you are at, and the behavior you chose to target. So if you forgot to do that, hurry up and think of it before you have to talk this morning. So we're going to do that, and then we are going to talk about, did I miss that? Okay, there we go. We're going to do a brief didactic on just functions of behavior, thinking about reasons for behavior, and a little bit on trauma and how we can make our behavior plans and our FBAs trauma informed. And so we're excited to do that, as it's kind of a up and coming area. And so we want to get all of your input into how we can incorporate that, because it sounds like that's something that all of you and all of your kiddos are dealing with. So and then we will have a case presentation. Kim Kaiser has graciously and bravely volunteered to go first, and she is on here today. So we'll spend quite a bit of time talking with her case, and it's a quite challenging case, and I think it'll be a lot, especially for our first session, but I think that is probably pretty representative of all of you probably have very challenging cases, because if it was easy, you would probably be able to do it on your own. So can everyone still hear me? I'm seeing. Okay, great. Yes, I think it's recording. Yeah, great. And then so we'll have a group discussion, and then we'll try to summarize the recommendations that we all came up with, so that we can send that to Kim, our lovely presenter. So as part of, we talked about kind of what we're going to talk about today. So let's go ahead and move towards introductions. So again, I am Skylar Bellinger, and I'm a psychologist here at KU Med Center.
And I'm Katie Tepper, and I am a psychology postdoctoral fellow at the KU Med Center as well.
Okay, let's see. Robert, do you want to introduce yourself? You're the next one on my screen. Oh, we can't hear you, Robert. Maybe do I need to unmute him? Go ahead.
Oh, maybe.
I got it.
I'm Robert. Yep. I'm Robert South. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I'm a program manager here at KU Med with the Telehealth Rock Schools program.
Great. And then Alice, do you want to introduce yourself as well? Oops, I'm trying to unmute her. Hold on one second. I thought I had you unmuted, but I don't.
I can, okay.
Okay, there you go. Go ahead.
My name is Alice Zhang. I'm a postdoc fellow at CSHD as well, and my background is in behavioral analysis.
Great. And let's see who we have next. We have Karen and Rachel.
This is Karen Cernick. I'm a school psych at Jefferson Elementary.
And this is Rachel. I'm the social worker at Jefferson Elementary.
Great. And what behavior have you chosen? Are you working on the same child together for this series?
We're working on the same.
And what behavior have you decided to target?
Refusal to cooperate, basically.
Okay. So non-compliance or refusal, what does that look like? Did you guys think or talk about like what that looks like with this child? Like if he's saying, you know, no, I don't want to, or I'm assuming it's a he, but it could, or just completely ignoring you, or what?
It's a young lady, and it varies from simply not going along with what you ask her to do to outright defiance, telling you, no, I won't do it, telling you, you will have to get security in here, they will have to bring a taser and handcuffs to make me go.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to this case presentation. Yeah. So you guys might be thinking about, you know, how you're going to define that. Like, is it if she doesn't comply after a number of seconds, or, you know what I mean? Because it's kind of like, is it, you know, since noncompliance can look very, very different, right? From arguing to just completely not responding. So just be thinking about that in your data collection. So thank you for being the first brave soul to share that. Okay, and then I have Sarah.
Good morning. My name's
Good
Sarah
morning.
Lang. I'm from the Coffeyville School District, and our target behavior is physical aggression, and that typically starts with non-compliance and then moves into physical aggression. So we're kind of seeing both, but what we're data tracking is physical aggression.
Okay, great. And does that look like, what does that look like from an outsider's view?
The physical aggression,
Yeah.
typically hitting, kicking, spitting, scratching, biting. Yeah. There has
I
been
think I have a good picture.
tearing up the classroom. We try to get it stopped, obviously, before it gets that far,
Right.
but that certainly has been the case in the past.
Okay, great, thank you. We'll be looking forward to that case as well.
Mhm.
Okay, and then I have somebody that is staff, but I'm not sure, and I only can see your eyes, so tell me who you are.
Indy
There you go.
Essington, and I'm from Neodesha Middle School, Elementary School. I'm a middle school elementary counselor.
Great. And do you have a behavior in mind for your child that you're
do.
gonna try to be?
I have a 6th grade boy who, if he doesn't want to do something, he walks out of the class. He cusses at recess, puts down other kids. He's kind of a bully, but he tries to intimidate even the adults. And then he kind of plays the victim that he gets abused at home, and so he'll cry and he'll hit his head and just, but we're just really not sure what to do with him. We've tried detentions, those don't work. We've tried a couple of ISS, which works for a little while, but then he gets back into the same behaviors.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of behavior, so be thinking about picking kind of one of those that maybe you want to track and target. So thinking of if it really is just sort of the walking out or refusal, or, aggressive words or, that kind of thing. So kind of be thinking about that, because I think we'll get further with one than probably, we kind of talked about that, but I'm sure your kids have so many things going on that it's hard to fix it all in a few months, but hopefully if we can target one thing, we can see some progress. So thank you so much for sharing that. And then let's see, who else can I see here? Kim, I'll unmute you, and you don't have to say too much about your behavior, because I know we'll talk about that soon.
Hey, I'm Kim Kaiser, and I am in Pratt.
Great, welcome. And then let's see, to follow. And so then I have Jay Mathis up there. Let me unmute you guys. Hold on, you're still muted for some reason.
No, still.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, now try. Go ahead.
Oh, we can't hear you.
You guys are muted on
There we
your
go.
end, I think. There we go. Great.
My name is Rachel Barlow. I'm here at Fairfield Schools, and I'm here with two of our administrators, principals from Fairfield Schools. Our student that we were kind of focusing on actually recently went into a PTRF, so we are kind of thinking more about a different student that we would like to do, but with her we were kind of focusing on non-compliance and some avoidance behaviors.
Great. It sounds like you already have an idea about the function, so that's wonderful. So we will definitely look forward to hearing more about that. And then Chris, I see Chris Garnica. Okay.
Am I unmuted here? I thought I did.
Now you're good.
All right. I'm a school social worker at a K-8 in Wichita. The student that I'm going to focus on is first grader. What we're seeing with him is a lot of physical aggression towards other students, but knowing that he's out of sight of staff. And so we're working on him now.
You said like when you can't see what's happening, is that?
Yeah, so there's a female teacher, and so when he goes to the bathroom, he'll be aggressive with students in the bathroom.
Okay. Okay. Well, it sounds like you have a pretty good idea of where it's happening and what's going on. So I think that will be a good thing to target. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. The next person I see is Rachel. Let me make sure she's unmuted. Okay, there we go. go ahead.
A student that we were looking at is a young student in our school who's got, I think I've heard some people say it, that non-compliance and avoidance behavior, gets very nonverbal when his behaviors take place, and quite a while to come down from that escalated state.
All right, thank you. And Rachel, where are you from and what do you do there?
I am at Haven Grade School and I'm the school counselor.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And then who else do I have? I have Jennifer. And unmute her. Hi, Jennifer.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Elson. I am an, sorry, I got this cold crap that everyone else has. I am an elementary counselor in Ellis, Kansas. And the student that I'm looking at, we are wanting to work on, he is very first grader, and he is very adult language, power struggle with adults. I'm sure he's just repeating the words he hears at home, but other first graders are kind of shocked by it. And then he also gets physically aggressive with his classmates.
Great. Well, and so I would think about maybe targeting one or the other of those things, so that we can really track that and address it. But you guys all have lots to we can hopefully address. And then I've got, let's see, Beth.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, my case is the same as Rachel Kelly's, what she just presented. I work at Haven Schools and I work at Pretty Prairie Schools. I'm a clinical therapist, but I'm acting as the mental health intervention team liaison. So
great. It's good. I love it when people are here together so that you guys can kind of collaborate. And
Rachel and Beth, we see that you guys recently lost a former student, and so we're really sorry for your loss, and definitely feel free to kind of bounce in and out as you need.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then Tracy, I think we haven't heard from Tracy yet.
This is Tracy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Perfect. That's what I was hoping for. This is Tracy. I knew I didn't have a camera. This is Tracy. I'm an occupational therapist here in Ottawa, Kansas. And the student that we're primarily targeting has elopement, and he will, if he's not eloping, he may drop to the floor and he's hard to move, but I think the function of that is different than the elopement. So those are kind of our student that we're looking at now.
That sounds very well defined, and it sounds like you're already thinking about that function. So great. And then I think the last but certainly not least is Dr. Nelson. I don't know if you can.
Good morning.
Say hello.
Good morning. This is Evelyn Nelson. I'm a psychologist with the Telehealth Rock Schools project. Great to hear everyone's cases. Skylar, can you hear me?
Skylar and Katie, did you guys get frozen?
Looks like they are frozen.
They're frozen. Well, I didn't have a chance to say hi. My name is Leni Swails. I'm one of the psychologists on the Telehealth Rocks project. You guys heard from me last week. And so I'll just be chiming in as needed. Looking forward to hearing more about the case today. I think it'll be a good discussion. It sounds like really timely, especially with all the trauma that people are experiencing throughout their school districts. Yeah, hopefully they'll be back in a second. It looks like Michelle went to go rescue them from being frozen.
Yeah, I think they disappeared right now, so they probably are restarting.
Okay, that sounds good.
This always happens with the technology. We just have to figure it out.
So what they're gonna do next when they come back is we're gonna do more of like the didactic portion of this morning, where we'll be talking about different functions of behaviors, and doing an overview of that. That'll be pretty brief, and they'll be followed by having Kim do her case presentation. And then we'll hopefully have a nice long discussion about some possible ideas and strategies, because it sounds like a really challenging kid to work with.
Maybe while we're waiting, we can talk a little bit about, because last time we talked about define your behavior, but also think about ways you can collect the data. So it'd be nice to hear from everyone.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, they're back.
Okay. Okay, we had to switch. We had to totally switch our camera, but I think we're good. So if everybody can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Well, awesome.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's move on because we have lots to talk about today. So we're going to talk about the function of the behavior. So I love this little cartoon that it's all fun and games until someone figures out the function of your behavior. So hopefully we can help you all with that over the series. But hopefully we don't take too much of the fun out of your students' world. All right, so we're going to talk about functional behavior assessments. I think many of you, especially in the schools, have a pretty good understanding of kind of the process behind that, but we're just going to go over that briefly. And then there are folks from mental health centers and, you know, different areas that may not have as much background in this, so we're just going to try to go over this briefly. It's always just good too to think about different ways to look at it. So just thinking about that, when we think about these behaviors, all of you are dealing with pretty significant behaviors that can be really frustrating as a therapist or a school team, and can sometimes it's easy to forget that there's a reason behind this. And as you know, as frustrating as it is, that we have to kind of figure out and be the detective of why this is happening. That we know that kids aren't just bad and naughty just to be, you know, bad, which I don't even like that word, but if there's always typically a reason or something that they're getting out of it, or something that they need, that they've figured out a way to get it, and it may be in a maladaptive way, but they're getting something, and in some ways it could have been adaptive, that they didn't know how else to get what they needed. So we want to figure out, what are they trying to communicate? What do they need? Because if we can get them what they need in a more appropriate way, then you know, we can make a huge difference, and we can create a behavior intervention plan that teaches them appropriate behavior to get what they need, reinforces those appropriate behaviors, and tries to prevent some of those inappropriate behaviors. So, and making sure that we're not reinforcing the things that were being reinforced, or the things that did seem adaptive to that child. So, you know, if we, you know, a lot of times we don't know why a behavior started, and so we're going to talk about, try to weave in trauma throughout this. So, you know, there may be a trauma component to why a child engages in a behavior, right? That they're dealing with trauma at home, or you know, the only way they get attention at home is by doing this sort of maladaptive behavior. And so, you know, we don't really always know exactly why it started, but that they're usually continuing it because it's working, right? So it might be working at home due to kind of the situation, but it also might be working at school because, you know, a lot of times these big behaviors do get a lot of attention, or they do get them out of certain tasks. So it's continuing because it's working. And so we have to figure out, how do we make it not work, and how do we give them other tools that will work better?
Other ways.
Okay. We're still looking. Okay. Okay, so then let's see. We talked about that. So then we talked about, you know, we just thinking about that oftentimes behaviors, they're learned and then they're reinforced unintentionally. I mean, none of us are saying we're going to try to reinforce or reward these negative behaviors, but so often it's just very, very difficult not to do that. So just because of the nature of the behaviors, they warrant attention, they warrant responses that often give them what they're looking for. So what we want to look at is sort of the ABC, right? So we want to look at the antecedents, which is the trigger. What is triggering this behavior? And you know, what is kind of the trigger that kind of forces this whole cycle into motion?
What happens right before the behavior?
Yes. And then we also want to look at sort of the C, which is and the B is the behavior, the C is the consequences. So you know, what are the reactions and the responses that are happening after this behavior? And, you know, again, whether they're planned responses or reactions, they're totally unplanned. Sometimes we can't control it at all, right? We can't control how parents respond. We can't control how peers respond a lot of times. So what's going on around it, around this behavior that may be sort of unintentionally reinforcing it or causing that behavior to continue or making it work? Because if I want my peers' attention and everyone's responding, it's working, right? And I'm getting that reaction that I want, which is going to continue to kind of feed that behavior and make me want to do it again. Because every time I do it, I get that reaction that I want or that consequence. So when we're collecting data, we want to make sure we're always, Dr. Tepper has a good data collection form, but we're always looking at those ABCs, right? That whenever we tally a behavior or we record it, we want to say what happened right before, what was the trigger, the A, and what happened right after, the C, the consequence. So, you know, again, I think many of you probably have, as part of your IEPs and when you have challenging behaviors, we have to do an SBA. But I think thinking about stepping back a little bit and thinking about why do we need to find the function? Is it just because, you know, it's required by this IEP, or, you know, my school psych says we have to do it? I just think thinking through, you know, why are we doing what we're doing? There has to be really thought in, right? And so thinking about that, it's our job to figure out the reason that these children, they have a reason. There's something, they're doing this for a reason, and they're getting something out of it that they need. And so it's our job to be the detective and to find out that reason. So again, what are they trying to communicate? What do they need or they want? And that's why we're doing this. You know, it's really not all heartless behavior analysts, science, sorry, Alice, stuff. It's truly like the reason that you know, behavior analysts really want all this data and is because we really want to figure out a way to systematically figure out what does this child truly need and what do they want and how do we get them what they need, and teach them how to get it.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to remember that behaviors might have started because of something. It could have been because of a trauma, but it's still being continued within the environment. It's still being continued, so we can still kind of focus on what is continuing.
Absolutely. And so when we know the function, again, we can figure out what's a replacement behavior, or what's something else they can do that's more appropriate to get what they need or what they want. And so, you know, if you don't know why they're doing it, you can't figure out how to teach them a more appropriate way to get it, right? Because, you know, there's great examples of, you can reward the heck out of a student, right? For thinking, okay, if I just give rewards for other behaviors, but maybe that's not what they're looking for. Maybe they're not looking for a tangible reward. Maybe they're not looking for candy or stickers. Maybe they're looking for attention. And so if we don't understand that they're really needing attention and not the candy or reward, then that great reward system or sticker chart that you made is not going to be effective, right? So there's no point in putting all this work into it if it's not truly addressing the function of the behavior. So I just found I like some of these cool quotes. I also like the idea of, you know, that we judge others by our behavior, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. And so thinking about that with our kids is, we think, oh, I'm really tired today, and I was really cranky and not nice with my husband this morning, and but it's just because I was tired, right? And that's why. And so I'm thinking, why did I do what I did, right? And but if it was him, I'd be like, oh my gosh, he's such a jerk. He's being so mean. Like, you know, so we're thinking I'm judging him by kind of that, whereas instead of saying, oh, he's probably tired, or he just needed more sleep, or he's hungry, hasn't had breakfast. So I think, you know, just thinking about that, we have this perception often of looking at the behavior and not the intention. And that's all an FBA is looking at the intention of this behavior. Okay. All right, so I'm going to let Dr. Tepper talk a little bit about what these possible functions could be. What are the reasons they could be doing this?
Dr. Bellinger might also pipe in a little bit.
Yeah, if you guys can't hear her, let me know.
Yeah. So we like this acronym of SEEDS, of all the various types of ways or reasons why a behavior might continue. So the first
Kitty, it's really hard to hear you.
Behavior providing some sort of sensory, are they getting some sensory input because of the behavior? The E is escape or avoid. So are they trying to escape a situation? Are they trying to escape a task? Are they trying to get out of something that they are expected to be doing? Attention. So attention would be kids do things for attention, whether it's positive or negative attention. And so they're trying to get some input from other people. And so that would be maybe why they would be doing it. Or tangible. Are they trying to get access to something that they can touch? So that could be somebody else's cool toy. That could be the reward box in the classroom. That could be my seatmate's pencil. But getting access to something that they want. So the way to remember those is by that acronym of SEAT. Yeah, we have quite a few. Yeah, just another kind of cool diagram of this this acronym of SEAT. And so what we're really trying to think of is, what does it do for the student, and then when does it happen? Those are kind of our two big things that we're trying to think of when we think about the function of behavior.
I like how that breaks it down in kind of clear, terms of when would the sensory, when would it be sensory, when would that happen, what would it be for you?
This one's also really cool because at the very, at the last one, getting access to electronics. If a kid acts up enough, if their behaviors are big enough, their parents might say, okay, take my phone. You're driving me crazy. Here's my phone.
I do that.
Absolutely. And so they could have learned this at home. Oh, if I do this behavior long enough, I get access to the thing that I really want, which is a cell phone, a tablet, a computer. And so they might do that at school in order to get access, thinking that they might get access to the same thing. Yeah. This is another good kind of outline about what are some of the potentials for all of those different functions of.
And we're not going to go through all these, but you have these slides, so hopefully that's something you can refer back to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'll hop back in. So you guys all had really great examples of. Okay, so I guess the sound is an issue. Yeah, you can try to get us back in.
Yeah.
Okay, is that better, Alice? Okay. So again, you guys all had some great examples of aggression, hitting, non-compliance. So what should I do when Jenny hits, right? So in order to figure that out, we can't just say, oh, yell at her, or oh, punish her, or oh, whatever it is. We have to know why she's doing it, right? So figure out why she's hitting. When is she most likely hitting? When is she least likely to hit? When does she hit? What is she doing when she hits? Where is she, right? And so then that's really that's all an FBA is, and it's really finding out what are the roots of this behavior. So here's the plant is the behavior, but there's roots underneath causing this. So Dr. Zhang kind of gave us this nice diagram of an FBA of, that there's lots of different ways to do an FBA, and as a behavior analyst, you're going to do probably a lot more direct data collection, and you're going to do some experimental things of changing the antecedents and the triggers and the consequences. But then you can also do it indirectly, especially if you're in like a mental health center or sometimes in schools where you don't have a lot of access, where you're using interviews and rating scales, and you don't have to be able to watch their behavior all day, every day to be able to get the information that we need. So we're going to send out some forms, and we're going to send out some resources to help you guys do that. Dr. Tupper had some nice interviews that you could use.
Yeah, interviews or just various types of tracking sheets.
Okay, so but when we're doing this, we're going to identify the target behavior. We talked about that already this morning. We're going to operationally define it, make it really clear, not just, oh, they do this and this and this, but what does this exact behavior look like, right? And so we can count it and take data on it. And then we're going to look at the antecedents and the consequences, and then figure out what's the function, what's maintaining it, how can I address the function. So in this case, we're going to say Jenny is aggressive, right? She's hitting, kicking, throwing. She's hitting her grandma multiple times per day. And when is she doing it? So in this situation, we found out she's doing it when she is told to do something that she doesn't want to do, a chore, or when grandma was busy or on the phone. right? And so then what did grandma do? Well, grandma talked to her, tried to calm her down, you know, gave her lots of kind of, you know, talking, calming down, attention. And then also, she usually didn't have to do what she needed to do. That chore it was not followed through with because of this aggressive outburst. So what do we think is maintaining this behavior? This is going to be our first poll. What do you guys think, based on that information, is maintaining is the function of this student's behavior? So it's either sensory, escape, attention, tangible, or both B and C, which is attention. Escape and attention. So we've got some responses coming through. Looks like you guys are rocking it so far. Okay, all right. So we're gonna share the results. Great, and so, yeah, the correct answer was B and C. So it was actually because she was getting, you know, she was getting to escape, which is B, and then she's also getting attention. So it can be multiple things, right? And it can be multiple things that are maintaining it. So the person that said attention is not wrong. I mean, that's great. Yeah. it was multiple things. So that, yeah, there we go. So thinking about if that's what she needs, if she needs to escape the task or if she needs attention, then how can we get her, you know, we can provide her praise and attention for appropriate behavior and for completing tasks. And then we can also make sure that we are, you know, following through, that she still has to continue the task that she was given, and then also ignoring and the hitting and walking away, as much as that seems counterintuitive to so many families and teachers. Oftentimes that's the most effective thing. If she wants your attention and you walk away, then that's teaching her real quick that she's not, that function is not getting met by that behavior, that's not working, right? So I'm going quickly through this because I want to spend most time on your cases. Oh, okay, hold on, it's not letting me, there we go. Okay. Okay, so here's another poll based on the same case. So how can we address the function? I just kind of gave you the answer for this. Sorry, we'll skip this. I already told you. I was going to let you think it all out yourself, but okay. So just like we said, you know, providing praise and attention for appropriate behavior, walking away, and then also we didn't talk about this, but teaching and honoring appropriate ways to request a break from a task. Whereas if she really doesn't want to do a chore and she wants to have 5 minutes to do something else, or she wants to do something different, you know, giving her choices or giving her, like, you know, a little pass that she can say, you know, I don't want to do this today, or I want 10 more minutes. And then we want to honor that, because if she says that appropriately and she learns, oh, if I ask nicely, I get it, not if I just go into this big aggressive outburst.
All right, so this is one of the forms that we could use to identify behaviors that occur frequently. And so for this one, you would say, we're going to observe the child for 30 minutes. This is when we started, this is when it ended, and this is in that little box. You can say, this is how many times the behavior occurred during that time. So then you would determine the rate by saying that how many times the behavior occurred divided by how many minutes. And then this is another way to track behavior, to determine kind of what is the antecedent, what happens right before the behavior happens, what's the behavior, and then what's the consequence. So what happens as a response, and then what's the child's response to that. So this can be done again in that kind of same 30-minute period, or if every time the behavior happens, you kind of say what happened right before, what happened right after, what was the child's response to that. This can help you identify what is the antecedent and what is the consequence, to help you understand what's the function of this child's behavior. No. This is another, and then there's an interview form that we also could use that really goes through the various times that a behavior occurs. Does it occur in certain classes? Does it occur certain times at home? What happens right before? What happens right after? What are they getting from this? And this is something that you could give if a behavior is occurring in a specific class. You could give this form to the teacher, and they could fill it out to really help you identify what's the function and what's happening in that class.
Or give it to a parent if
Exactly.
health,
Yeah.
you know, situation where you really want to figure out why it's happening in
Yeah.
at home.
Yeah, but we'll send that form out as well, along with these two.
And if you guys have really good forms too, I bet a lot of your districts use great. If you have any really great data collection forms or interview forms, please send that to us. I think Robert is collecting our resources, so please send those to Robert and we can send those out because we're always looking for better tools as well. Okay, so I wanted to spend a little bit of time on trauma before we get to our case because this case definitely has some roots in trauma, and I feel like many of your cases that you have shared with us are, you know, it's just so many children have experienced trauma, and we feel like, you know, so often that's a big piece of the puzzle, right? And so we want to spend some time talking about that and want to make sure that we sort of weave that throughout so that we really all feel confident in doing a trauma-informed FBA. And we don't feel like we're ignoring a big piece of this child. And even just hearing from, you know, some of our participants today that there was, you know, just very significant trauma, even just this morning that, you know, thinking about that what we're all dealing with, and we could even do a piece on secondary trauma probably for, you know, educators and providers and caregivers about how much this really just does impact all of us. So I'm going to not show this YouTube video in the for time's purposes. But if you, we'll send this to you so you have this link. This is a great video on, you know, how trauma really affects the developing brain. And many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with ACEs and kind of all of the things that are coming out with that. But it really breaks it down nicely on how that really some of these early experiences can truly affect how our brain is developing, which can then really impact behavior, right? And so we know that exposure to a high level of stress actually alters the brain and actually alters the size of different parts of our brain that have a lot to do with really important functions that affect our behavior significantly. So we know that significant stress affects the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the prefrontal cortex. And we know that the amygdala plays a huge role in kind of mood control and impulse control and that fight or flight response, right? So if trauma is impacting, you know, the way that's developing, then clearly we're going to have these children are going to have a different response, maybe a quicker fight or flight response, not being able to use, you know, they're going to have that more intense response or difficulty controlling their mood. Also that, you know, the hippocampus, if that's developing differently, then that really affects memory. And so I want to keep that in mind as we're doing some of these interventions as well, that if we have impaired memory, or if these kids have impaired memory, then it might take longer to learn some of the things that we're trying to teach them. Or they might need some support, some visual support, so they remember what the expectations are. So you think you know, you don't have a great memory, and then you react really quickly. I mean, you put that together, and that's going to create some of these really challenging behaviors, right? Also thinking about trauma of the family too, that we know that, you know, the child experiences trauma, probably so does the family. And then that may be affecting their memory. You might be thinking, oh my gosh, I've told them this 7 times, and we've been trying to get the family to do this, and they're just not responding. And you know, it may not be because they're not motivated. It truly might be because of their kind of the impact of trauma has had on their brain and their ability to remember and function. And again, in that prefrontal cortex, that executive functioning, realizing I need to control this impulse. I need to, you know, I need to focus on this and not this. I need to not respond in the way that my amygdala is telling me. And so if that's not working as well, again, this is a really kind of very dangerous combination and really unfortunate for these kids when all of these pieces of their brain aren't functioning the way that we would expect, then it's going to be that much harder for them to control their behavior. So I just wanted to kind of let you guys know that in those cases, we don't really think there's really a whole lot to change in the FBA process, but really being sensitive to that it might take longer. We might have to modify things. We might have to give them more supports because of these.
We still want to be very consistent with the expectations for that child as well.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So as just kind of, again, thinking about that trauma might have a really important role in creating the behavior, but other things might be maintaining it. So just because, you know, this child had a significant trauma or has trauma at home, and that might be part of why they engage in this behavior, there's probably other things that are happening in other settings or at school that are, or even at home, that are maintaining it. So they might have done this behavior because of something that happened, but then they continue to get attention for it, right? And so they were like, oh, this is working. Like, not, they weren't thinking that and truly, but unconsciously they're, you know, they're getting that feedback. And so we need to realize what is maintaining it, because we can't control past trauma, right? Which is really unfortunate. And so, you know, I think that's heartbreaking for many of us, but we can't change what happened. But we can try to help this, support this child to display more adaptive behavior so that they can be more successful. Because when they're more successful at school and with their peers and with their teachers and you know, in the community, then that just creates more positive experience to balance out that trauma. So what we can do is we can offer resources to support and help the child process the trauma in a healthy way. And typically that would be like, you know, mental health services or someone that specializes in processing trauma. So making sure they're getting that opportunity. We're not just ignoring that they had this trauma. We want them to be able to talk about it and play about it and kind of process that in a healthy way. And want the family to be able to do that as well. We can create positive environments, experiences, and relationships that can really balance or kind of mitigate the and buffer is a good word, buffer the impact of that trauma. And so the more, you know, if they've had all these negative relationships that have, you know, created some difficulties with brain development, let's give them some positive relationships. Let's give them some positive experiences. Let's give them lots of reinforcement for good things. You know, let's give them some consistency so that they know what to expect, and that, so that they can trust that they know what's going to happen in their world, right? So I think that's the big thing too, is just because there's trauma, that doesn't mean that we don't put into place these behavior plans, because that's even more the reason why they need consistency in their world, because they didn't know what to expect, and we can give that to them, right? And you know, I think Dr. Swails was wanting to make sure we emphasize that most of a behavior intervention plan should be positive, right? So we shouldn't feel bad if we put all these positive experiences and positive rewards and positive feedback to them. And that, again, that being consistent reduces their anxiety, it increases their trust in adults. And we already talked about really being patient, that it might take longer, that their brain might need more support and more repetition and things like that. And then we want to consider how the trauma may impact our intervention. There's a really great website that talks about trauma-informed care, trauma-informed schools, trauma-informed systems, and we're going to share that. But it has lots of great tips on how to make the school in general more trauma-informed, or your practice or your approach more trauma-informed. And so we want to make sure that we share that with you. There's a really nice article that I love that I will send out as well that talks about very concrete things that you can do when working with kids and families, and things to keep in mind and things to change or modify to make that more trauma informed. I get frustrated when I hear, you know, want to be trauma informed, but what does that mean? Like, what do I do differently, right? And so we want to give you real clear reasons or real clear ideas and concrete strategies to do that. Anything else pressing before we go? Okay, great. Well, if you have any more thoughts or ideas for Kim's case, that would be a, since we're going to send it out later, please email that to Robert Stiles, and we can include that on, because again, I think, you know, 15 heads are way better than one, right? So if you have thoughts, or if you've worked with someone similar, or have ideas or resources, please share that with us and with Kim, so that we can help this guy, because gosh, bless his heart, this is a really tough case. So thank you for sharing it.
We will see you all in 2 weeks for prevention.
Yeah, on Valentine's Day.
Oh, there we go.
Right.
All right.
Okay, thanks everybody. Have a nice weekend.